All right, hello everyone. Welcome to Never Stop Questioning. My name is Cole Dorman. I'm here with Dr. Jasper Halekas. If you'd like to introduce yourself, what's going on?
Hey, I'm Professor Halekas. Congratulations, you pronounced both my first and last name correctly,
perfect.
which no one ever does.
Oh, I'm flattered.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to an interesting hour.
So what do you do here at the university? What do you study?
Oh, who can say? So I'm a professor here in the physics department, and I study what's called space physics, which for the most part, space physics is the same thing as astrophysics. We're studying things outside of our Earth. The distinction between space physics and astrophysics, I guess, is that space physics is mostly within our solar system. Astrophysics is mostly without. So I study the sun, the moon, the planets in our solar system.
Mm-hmm. Did you always know you wanted to do that, or was that just kind of like figure it out as you went?
There were definitely a lot of accidents along the way, but
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to be a scientist and that I wanted to do something with physics from a pretty early age.
Mm-hmm.
And I blame Carl Sagan for that, actually. Maybe not in the way that you might think, though. So the way that I came to physics was through science fiction. When I was young, I was a voracious reader of science fiction. Mostly, really pulpy stuff, not real deep literature. But I read a book called Contact by Carl Sagan, which was, a really excellent first contact story. And I was, captivated enough by that fiction book to go and try and read some of his nonfiction books, of which there are several. And those books really got me started on my interest in science, I would say.
I didn't know he wrote any fiction books. I thought he was strictly nonfiction.
Yeah, as far as I know, Contact is the only one. So Contact, if you haven't seen the movie, you should watch the movie for sure. It's actually an excellent movie. Jodie Foster is in it, young Jodie Foster. She's the main protagonist, and is it's a really well done first contact story.
Yeah, I can't go wrong.
It's like a very sciencey first contact story.
So why'd you end up choosing academia? Was that another accident that kind of happened along the way, or?
Yes, lots and lots of accidents.
Okay.
No, I actually didn't really particularly choose academia until pretty late in my career. I've taken kind of a non-standard trajectory, I guess you would say, to being a professor and being a faculty member. I was actually thinking that I would be more of a staff scientist, research scientist for my whole career, and I was for quite a long time. I got my PhD and I got a postdoc, which is sort of the standard track. But after that, I was a research scientist for over 10 years before I decided to jump onto the faculty track. So, for a long time, I didn't necessarily think I did want to go into academia per se. I was working at a research lab at Berkeley, where there was not a lot of interaction with students and no teaching and things like that. And then after a while, I decided that maybe I wanted that to be part of my job and started looking around for jobs. And lo and behold, I ended up here.
So is there a whole field for that, I guess? I mean, research that's not for industry, but more for universities that's not professorship?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there are more non-professor jobs in my field than there are professor jobs, probably by a fairly wide margin, actually. And some of those are at universities, places like the Space Sciences Laboratory at UC Berkeley, where I was, places like the Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics at Colorado, but also NASA centers, NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, Marshall Space Flight Center, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, another example, the Applied Physics Laboratory at Johns Hopkins University. All of these places have very few faculty members, actually, mostly research scientists, staff scientists.
I guess that makes sense. I never thought of it like that,
Yeah, no, it's interesting. People don't always know all these different career tracks that there are in our field.
No, certainly. I feel like a lot of people, at least my peers, I feel like just go in just for academia and nothing else. I feel like most people, so I guess you were kind of opposite. You went in for not academia and went into academia, and
It's actually kind of ironic because teaching is probably my favorite part of my job right now. I really love teaching, but when I was in graduate school and doing a postdoc and things like that, I was really convinced that I didn't want to spend time teaching. So things can really change as you get older.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Would you recommend academia to other people?
I think it all depends on what makes you happy. For me, academia is the best job in the world. I get to get up in the morning and I get to teach interesting subjects to interesting people, and I get to do interesting research. Most of my day is solving puzzles, which is sort of my favorite thing to do. When I have to break my job down to the very nitty gritty, what I do is I solve puzzles all day long. So if you like that kind of thing, it's the best job in the world.
Are you an avid puzzle solver just for hobby, or is that just how you describe your job, I guess?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do like solving puzzles. I like doing crosswords and Sudoku and word jumbles and all these kind of things. Do I spend a whole ton of time doing it? No, because I work my brain plenty in my job, and so I don't need that much mental stimulation outside of my job.
I can totally understand that. It's kind of I feel like athletes. Kind of like how athletes gain weight once they retire.
Yeah, right.
They're like, that's my career. I'm done for it.
Although old scientists never retire, they just become emeritus faculty. And,
oh my god. Okay, can you describe that to me? I've never fully understood what it meant. Are universities just being kind when they slap that title onto or do that?
It's a nice way to keep contact with older faculty members after they retire, not just throw them out to pasture entirely, but let them have an office that they can come into and hang out and still interact with the life of the department a little bit. So it's not for everyone. Some people, when they retire, they want to retire and be done. Some people, when they retire, have a little bit of a harder time letting go, and they want to maintain some contact with the academic environment.
Do you have to do any work when you're
emeritus?
Yeah, emeritus. Thank you. I couldn't remember the title.
No. I mean, you're not getting paid at that point, so it's anything you do is gratis.
You show up for the photos.
That being said, some people become emeritus and still work very, very hard. Professor Gurnett in our department is emeritus now, and I think he works as hard as he ever did.
Yeah, he's on a lot of committees. He probably does a lot of stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So just the research is done, but he does a lot of, I guess, more outreach.
He's actually still doing a lot of research. I mean,
wow.
He's just not getting paid by the university to do it.
Wow, that is quite interesting. Learn something new, I guess. But
Professor Gurnett is another person who just loves what he does,
I can totally respect that.
So
got a real passion for it. Have any professors impacted you whenever, I guess, just in general, but I was mostly thinking about undergrad?
Yeah. In my undergrad career, I actually did not have a lot of professors that super wowed me, that left a lasting impression on my life. When I went to graduate school, though, my advisor definitely left a long-lasting impression on me, and he's still, someone that I model a lot of my career after. My advisor, Robert Lynn, was a man of amazing intuition. He could always he could look at a physical problem that he wasn't necessarily that familiar with, and he could break it down to its essence immediately. And I think that intuition is an amazing, important part of science. I don't think I'm as good at it as he was, but I sort of strive for what he did.
Well, don't count yourself out, You've come so far.
Well, yeah.
I guess we all got. So what turned you on to teaching? Was it a group of students that really, or was it just over time you were like, what, this is really what I'm passionate about?
Yeah, I guess a couple of things. I started to enjoy giving presentations and talks more. When I started out as a graduate student, and even as a postdoc, I was just really sort of terrified of giving scientific talks. And I found the whole experience extremely stressful and did not enjoy it at all. The first time I had to give a scientific talk at a conference was at the Lunar and Planetary Science Conference in Houston, Texas, at the Johnson Space Flight Center. And I had a 15-minute slot for my talk, so I put together some material for my talk and slides, and this was long enough ago that we had transparencies, not even PowerPoint. So I had a 15-minute slot. I finished my talk in 6 minutes. I was so scared.
I remember taking a public speaking class, and it's really tough. I remember struggling to write like an 8-minute speech, but to like really for like 15 minutes to go, you have to write like a fair amount of material. With this, I kind of get I got to take the easy route because I'm kind of relying on you here. But I don't know if I'd be able to, if it was just myself, to be able to provide enough content for like 30 to 45 minutes.
Well, I'm just making it up.
It's fair enough. It'd be kind of weird if you like rehearsed it all in your head.
Believe it or not, I did not get the questions in advance.
No, he's been freeballing it.
But so back to the point. I was really scared of speaking for a long time, but after I'd done it enough times, I began to appreciate that there's an art to speaking, and there's an art to explaining something complicated in a way that an audience can understand, and I started to appreciate that a lot more. And so that probably more than anything is what got me thinking, well, maybe I do want to try teaching at some point. But it was a shot in the dark when I came here. I'd never like taught a whole class start to finish before I came here. So there was a lot of learning on the job. I think Dale's online. He can probably tell you, how that learning on the job went. Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
I mean, you're here now, so
You haven't fired me yet, is what you're saying?
No, I meant it in a kinder way, but I forgot what I was going to say.
You got a list right there.
No, I know, but I was going to give like a personal anecdote.
Oh, good. Good.
But,
public speaking, teaching.
Oh yes. Oh, one of my I forgot this. One of my favorite part about physics is being able to like understand all of just the complex ideas and stuff, and then being able to like relay it and tell other people about it. And I love seeing their faces light up whenever you get to like when something like really clicks with them. That's kind of like that's quite odd, and so I can appreciate the liking the teaching side of physics and just being able to fully digest everything that's going on and help others out.
So you're like 10 years of where I was, 10 years ahead of where I was at your age, because it took me a long time to come to the realization of what a great
I wouldn't say that
is.
because I bet you probably knew a lot more physics at
I
my
don't know.
age.
I mean, the older you get, the more physics you knew when you were young.
Yeah. Because I remember I was reading up a little bit on you before we did this, just kind of get some background stuff. And I saw like your first NASA job was when you were in high school. Am I correct in this, or am I losing my mind?
Let me think about that. I did do my first undergraduate research before I actually started college, so that is a true statement. Okay.
And what was that like, just like starting it so early? Was that like pretty common, I guess, whenever you were in school, or?
Well, I mean, so it was the summer before I started college.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, like I was a freshman in high school or something.
But it's still pretty ahead of the crowd.
Yeah, it was. That was one thing that really turned me on to the particular career that I ended up with now, because the reason that I got that particular research gig was that I got a NASA space grant scholarship.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of in my head. All right.
So NASA Space Grant is this wonderful program that provides scholarships and research opportunities. I didn't know what it was at all.
Yeah.
My high school physics teacher turned me on to it, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll put in an application to that. And I got it, and then they set me this opportunity, and that was my first experience with actually doing research in the field that I am in to this day.
Really?
So not only that, I'm now the campus coordinator for the Iowa Space Grant Program.
Oh my gosh!
So it all sort of came full circle.
Yeah. Wow. So you never had any doubts about what you wanted to research?
Oh, I totally did.
Okay,
I totally did. Actually, when I was applying to graduate school, I was like almost on two completely diverging tracks, because I applied to a couple of places that did space physics, but I was also really interested in nonlinear dynamics. And so I applied to a couple different places. Yeah, the run-of-the-mill kind of stuff. But, I applied to like two divergent set of graduate schools, and it was a bit of a flip of a coin.
Do you ever think about what the other path could have been, or?
Oh, sure. Like I always try and tell students when they're making big life decisions, you never get to go back and try the other path, though. All you can ever do is make the best decision based on what you know at the time, and you never get to find out whether it was the quote-unquote right decision or the wrong one. You just do the best you can.
I know you said that your advisor has been pretty influential. Has he been able to just kind of like help you make big decisions like that? I mean, I know you said that he's influenced you so much in physics. Has the influence gone outside of physics for that too? Or is it mostly just, or is it, I guess, in a sense that like physics is so much part of your life that maybe they're both two in one?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm trying to think about whether I actually took Bob's advice about my career track at any point.
Yeah.
I think I actually went against his advice several times, and not because it was bad advice particularly, but I ended up just choosing other things.
No, I get that. Sometimes I like to just hear advice from people just to hear another perspective, and then I don't do it at all.
Yeah. No, Bob, I mean, if I had taken Bob's advice, I would be at the University of Washington right now. Sorry, this is just slipping off of my chin. It's driving me crazy.
Don't worry about it.
I know you're not supposed to touch your face mask, but...
Hey, I won't tell anyone, but I can't promise.
I can't promise recorded.
Yeah, it's all on film, so...
We're doing our best here, folks. 6 feet. Mask up.
I find that... So this mask is pretty big. Oh, crap, I'm touching it now. I gotta keep my hands behind my back. So my mask is quite big, but with like the disposable masks, they're small enough where if I start talking, it like shimmies off my chin as well. So you gotta be diligent. So... I know that you have children at home.
I do.
What's it like having, well, I shouldn't say having, it's kind of weird phrasing for it, but raising two children and being in and being in physics? They're both pretty time-consuming ventures, I imagine.
I could not do it on my own.
Yeah.
My wife does a lot of the really hard work of raising the kids, and allows me to do physics. It's a lot of work having kids. It's also very rewarding.
Yeah.
Kids grow really fast, and the phrase that has always resonated with me with parenting is that the days are long, but the years are short.
That's quite nice.
So like a day parenting your children, like when it's going badly, can feel like it's 1,000 years. It can just be excruciating. But then you turn around and like a year has gone by and you see that they've blossomed and like suddenly like turned into like their own people that have their own thoughts and stuff, and it's pretty amazing.
Have you influenced them on the physics track or anywhere? Are you letting them explore their own passions?
Yeah, the funny thing is they're both really into math right now.
Okay.
And I don't feel like I've pushed them in that direction at all. But both of them spend like an hour a day playing this like math video game called Prodigy.
Wow,
and,
good for them.
And they like come up to me and they like ask me math questions and like tell me math facts like every day. It's actually pretty hilarious because I really don't feel like I've pushed that at them at all.
Yeah.
But, they're both turning into mathematicians.
I remember when I was younger, I hated math. I actually was never, it's funny because I'm such a math demanding field, but I never really liked math until like my final year of high school, and then I was like, I kind of enjoy this and haven't really looked back since. So I think it's kind of interesting.
It is, yeah. Now that being said, my older son says that he wants to be a video game designer, and my younger son wants to be the first astronaut/archaeologist. So, we'll see what their eventual career paths turn out to be.
I mean, I guess there is the field of astrobiology, I believe it's called.
Yeah?
So I'd be kind of scared, though, if he found any bones on Mars or the Moon.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that would probably get you quite famous.
He told me the other day he wasn't sure he would want to wear a spacesuit, so maybe he just wants to be an archeologist and not an astronaut archaeologist. So yeah, he's still working it out.
Both fine.
He's
fine
only
fields.
5.
So well, there we go. So whenever, like I said earlier, I was kind of just like reading up on you, and I was looking at your CV, and I was just reading through your CV just to get kind of info, and I saw the section about all of your scientific endeavors, or I guess like the work you've done on research papers, and so I counted it, and excluding what you deem to be a minor contribution, you have worked on 194 scientific papers. And so I have to ask, how have you been able to create such a large output like that? And
work in large groups of scientists, so
yeah.
I'm definitely not writing all of those papers.
Yeah, because that seemed quite crazy to me to have, I guess not a work ethic like that, because you certainly have the work ethic, but just to be able to like find time to be able to kind of like live life and still not to suggest that you didn't, but so that's why I was asking was how do you find the balance?
No, I mean having great collaborators is really important in science. It's not a one-man show unless you're a theorist of certain kinds, but even there's usually collaborations. Sorry, I'm getting a little slippage again.
Oh, don't worry about it.
But yeah, I mean, working in an experimental science, especially what I do, building instruments that go into space, we're working in large groups of scientists. The teams are pretty big, and so if you look at the length of the author lists on a lot of those papers, it's not like high energy physics where it's 1,000 authors, but it's like 10 authors per paper. So. What I'm trying to say is my stats are inflated.
Okay.
But
field.
I've been lucky to work with a lot of really good scientists and be in a lot of really good collaborations. I will say that I've at least read all of those papers.
Okay.
And provided comments on them.
Yeah. No. Do you work with a lot of people from like different universities, or is it more of what we were talking about a little bit earlier, where it's like not academia but not industry? I don't have like a good name for it, but
Yeah, all of the above.
Okay.
Work a lot with people from Berkeley, Colorado, NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, kind of the big places that do space stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you've also just worked on like committees, done book chapters, and given talks. Do you really enjoy that as well, or is it more of just kind of like what comes with the job? I know you said you have a passion for teaching. Do you kind of have like a passion for these regards, or is it, I guess just more what comes with the job?
I'm not sure how many people have a passion for committee work. Committee work is one of those necessary evils. I mean, it can also be rewarding in that it can be a very kind of collaborative thing. But it can also be a lot of make work, so it's a mixed bag.
I thought people, maybe this is me being naive, I thought people did committees for fun. I thought you like absolutely did not have to do committees whatsoever, and that committees are just like, man, I really love what I do. I want to kind of help out the community, but maybe I don't understand what a committee is.
I apologize to anyone out there who loves committee work, but I am not that person.
Okay. I know like Dr. Rogers is on an insane number of committees, or at least so I've been told. And so that's kind of that's what I've been basing my judgment off of.
Yeah. Professor Rogers does a lot.
So do you have to be on committees, or? I don't want to force you to like talk bad about anyone. So,
No. I mean, there's a lot of different levels of committees.
Okay.
There are committees within our department that just kind of keep the department running. Those kind of committees are totally great. I mean, it's work that needs to be done, and it's working with your colleagues, and it's I have no problem with those kind of committees. Mm-hmm. There are also a lot of committees that are more widespread, and that kind of stuff can be a lot of work and a lot of politics, and it's also work that needs to be done, but it's not something I personally enjoy a whole lot.
That's so interesting. So is it kind of just like socially expected of professors to do committees, and if like someone doesn't, it's like, hey, come on, man, like this has to get done. Or
yeah, if you hang around long enough, you get asked to do these things, and
okay.
you can't say no to everything.
Is it just professors who do committees, or is it all of the above?
It totally depends. I mean, there are lots of committees that are more than just faculty members, for sure.
Wow, I have so many questions on committees. So like, that's what this has become, is just me us learning how the science community works.
Oh, it's really interesting. I mean, it's definitely like a microcosm of the world. There's politics and everything in science.
Yeah, I've heard that like in some fields there are a lot more politics than others. I heard like high energy, you really gotta.
Boy.
Yeah, I don't know like the depths of it or anything.
Yeah, me neither. But very large collaborations. With very large collaborations comes politics.
Yeah, I imagine that with 1,000 people papers, you probably got to do a lot of work to become author #1 on that.
Well, they've evolved at a system where they go alphabetical, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's quite clever, so that they don't need to. So people can kind of sleep at night and not need to worry about it.
So if your last name is Aardvark, like,
oh my gosh,
you got a lot of papers.
What if someone with like a last name with 2 A's, they started like breeding physicists, just like huge humanitarian issue, but they're like, we have to create this like powerful family that just is always first in research papers. Not relevant. That's just me thinking out loud.
You're not the first person to think of that, trust me.
Oh, I hope not, but I'll. Do you have advice for anyone looking to kind of follow in your footsteps?
Well, I mean, I don't think that I'd recommend anyone try and replicate exactly the path that I took.
I just meant like your.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you speak. I'm sorry.
No. I zigzagged all over the place. Like, I definitely didn't take a linear path to where I was going. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that I'll say are going to sound really obvious and trite, like, take the right courses and have good grades and things like that. But another thing I think that's really important is building contacts in the field. So, starting right out as an undergraduate, like doing undergraduate research is the best thing you can do, because you'll get to see what science is really like. And hopefully if you have a project that works out, you'll get to go to a conference. You can make contacts, meet people at conferences. And those contacts will pay off in the long term. The more people you know in the field, the more people who know you, more to the point, the better chance you have to progress in academia.
So meet people from different institutions, or become like kind of invested into one institution? I guess, would it be like, so I'm personally not super interested in academia, but say I was, would you recommend I get to know everyone in this department, or instead know the same amount of people but spread across that different number of departments?
Well, I mean, not all of those things might be equally possible. But definitely making contacts, in diverse places, I think is good, because there's a limited number of jobs out there, and often those jobs are not exactly where you want to go. So knowing people that are sort of spread out is going to give you a better crack at a broader range of those jobs.
Mm-hmm. And I know you were saying that you kind of zigzagged, and you recommend people don't do that. Should people really kind of have a conversation with themselves early in the track of physics about what they want to do and sort of stick to it? I guess what do you think is the accepted, quote unquote, because I know it's super broad, but like the accepted amount of like zigzag? Like, when should people kind of know what they want to do and what's going on? And
I'd say there's no standard path. I mean,
I guess
there's a path. There's a path that's perhaps the most common, which is sort of a linear progression through undergrad, grad school, postdoc, academia. But lots and lots of people like diverge from that for a year or two and meander around and do things a little out of order. I think at least half of the people that I can think of did not follow the perfect, linear progression with no breaks or zigzags along the way.
I think that makes me, just as an undergraduate, feel a little bit better, because whenever I look at all of my peers, it feels like, I know this is never the case, it's all like really performative, but it feels like everyone kind of like knows what they want to do, and if you don't do it by this specific deadline in your life, then it's probably not going to happen. But I think it's a little comforting, I guess, to hear that, like, you know, the opportunity is always going to be there. It's not going to go away, and you certainly have room to try. I guess how easy it gets probably changes a little bit. How easy it gets to obtain that opportunity.
Well, yeah, I mean, none of these things are easy. Otherwise, everyone would do them. So all of these kind of jobs are competitive and hard to get at some level. But
I just meant, like, I guess not, like, I know that, like, you know, no matter what you have to do, you really have to put the work in. But I mean that, like, I feel like it'd be more difficult. So say I just loved high energy, like we were talking about before, but then I want to do space physics. It would probably be a lot harder for me to pivot to space physics when I'm like 30 years old than it would be to like pivot as like a senior or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some truth to that for sure. At the same time, like, there's counterexample for anything like that. You know, there are people who make all sorts of nonlinear tracks work. And for anybody out there who's, like, you know, trying to decide whether or not they can pursue some track, if you're not familiar with the concept of imposter syndrome, look it up and understand it, because everyone has imposter syndrome, whether they admit it or know it or not.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that, you know, they're sort of faking it and they're going to get discovered, and, you know, they're not really as awesome as everybody else.
Yeah.
Everyone has this feeling at some point, if not all the time.
I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm biased, I'm in the field. I feel like that's especially so present in like the physics field, because there's so many broad ranges, like so many different fields that you have to know, just going from like kinematics to electricity to like nuclear physics, and I'd be expected to like really know all of them, that there's really no way for anyone to be on top of absolutely everything.
Oh yeah. And there are some really, really brilliant people in physics, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to like look at someone really brilliant and think, well, gosh, there's no way I can compete with that guy. But you know, that guy probably has his own fears and worries, or that gal.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's where I think I'm going to end it. Is there anything you want to plug? Any last minute stuff that you want to kind of cover?
No, I don't have any inventions that I'm peddling or anything like that. No, I think I'm good.
No, maybe shout out to your wife for for raising the kids.
Well, yeah, I mean, my wife is the one who makes it possible for me to come and play and do physics for sure. So absolutely, shout out to my wife.
Shout out to the
Thanks,
wife.
Suzanne.
All right, well, thank you everyone for coming, and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everyone. Pleasure.